call our very first work session order. Today is January 12th. It's 12:03 p.m. And let's go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Anyone who can, please stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we're following that up with our moment of silence. If anybody will just take a moment. All right, thank you. All right, so today's our first work session. And work sessions are meant to be more informal than public meetings. They're often discussions and free-flowing discussions about agenda topics for the city council and staff to make sure everybody's on the same page and we're moving forward. It is not something that we typically open for any public comment, although that is at the discretion of the chair. So it might change from meeting to meeting depending on what's on the agenda. But in terms of today, what we're looking to do is there are a couple of things on today's agenda. The primary topic for our work session is portfolios, making sure we're all on the same page with portfolios, scopes of work, and how we want to be able to track the work so that we can, when we come into future work sessions, get updates and things like that, so that we're all kind of working on the same software process and all of that. So we have a couple presentations that Sharon was wonderful and put together. She's going to lead those presentations. What's not listed on the agenda, and that was I was remiss to put on, but we, council member Shaw had asked that we have a brief discussion about OVPSA. I know a number of us have been getting a lot of communications from the public on OVPSA, so I'm going to put that before adjournment. We'll have a brief discussion about that. I also would like, I've spoken with Sharon, we're going to go over some brief updates on the leftover items from the Gantt chart from the transition, because there were some things left open that have been closed, as well as a couple of things we just need to make sure are still progressing. So we'll do a brief update from that list. And then actually, I'd like to make sure that in future agendas, we have a section for council comment, things people want to bring up and mention that's a separate line item specifically, so that you guys always know there's a place where you can say, hey, this has come up and it wasn't necessarily necessary for the agenda itself. So we're going to make those kinds of adjustments. But going with agenda item 1 was to bring up the organizational chart and staffing responsibilities, which I think Kathy's going to put up on the screen. And everyone, oh, I haven't seen the paper yet. I have not. Everyone in council should have received the presentations that Kathy is about to go over. So hopefully you've had a chance to look over them so that when we ask about questions, comments, suggestions, you're able to give us feedback.
Okay, well, I don't quite have a slide yet, but I'm not better than waiting. I'm just going to talk you through at least the first part of it. So,
well, and everyone has a computer. Is there one that you wanted specifically to go over?
It's called, I believe it was called Working Session, January.
Yes, perfect.
So, but I think we're trying to display it here as well.
No, we are. I just was going to say, so while you're talking, they can all, so everybody gets the one with us.
Okay, so just to try to pick up frame from what we're doing. Now, this is the first time that we've all gotten together where we've tried to get together and say, this is the work of the Brainerd City Council and the mayor. So we've had lots of input, lots of items that we've looked at from a schedule perspective, lots of advice that we've gotten. And so one of the things that we want to do is talk about what is the scope of work for the city council? And there are two approaches to that. One is looking at it top down, as you know, as Janet had mentioned, what we have is, you know, we've defined how the city council organization is going to put together and what are their areas of responsibility. So that will be a top-down look at how the work will be assigned. And then the second way that we will look at it is what we would call kind of a bottom-up look. So we look at the schedule that we used, that we managed against when we were not yet a city, and there are some outstanding items there. So these are individual tasks in most cases, rather than being big portfolio items. So we'll look at both. And this is just to try to identify what is the work of the council. The second thing is that once we think we know what the scope is, then we need to plan the work. And we can't do everything at once. So we're going to need to prioritize and say, these are the items that really need to happen in the first 6 months. And try to narrow it down to something that is achievable for all of us to actually meet the objectives. And that's the budget that we're held to right now, is just our first 6 months worth of work. So it's like prioritize the items and then put together the details on how do we actually do that work? How do we accomplish the work? So not only do you say, I need to have a general plan, but what are the steps that I need to follow through on to be able to actually get a general plan, just as one example. And then the last thing is, we need to document that so that all council members and the mayor are on the same page in terms of the work that's happening, the status of the work, that it'll be easier to answer questions, it'll be easier to look for gaps, just to be able to say, we know that as a council, we're doing the work of the city and we're doing the right things. That's the goal. So just briefly, that's what we're trying to have done in the next couple of work sessions. And we have at least some places that we can start. So do we have that?
I'm trying to join your Zoom with that.
Okay.
I haven't seen you. So
So, I know the council members have it in front of them. Our audience does not, but we have put together an organization chart, you know, it was a functional oversight chart where we had identified early on what we felt the responsibilities of each council member would be. And I think that's part of what we need to talk about today is just as a discussion item, you know, what do we think of what we have so far? And then one thing that I would pose to you, and this is just my own view of this, is where we have two council members that have the same portfolio item, one would need to be accountable. Because we would need, you always, from a project management perspective, would need to know which council member would be accountable for that item. The other can support, but you also need to know who's the number one. So any discussion about what's going on with, you know, what we have in terms of the organization right now?
So I would agree with you, and so if everybody's on, I know we're getting it up on the screen for the audience as well, but if everyone's on the actual org chart page, I think what she's referring to is where we have the white items rather than the kind of tannish items of number 1 and number 2 of committees. And I would agree that I think that can be thought of as kind of confusing. In an org chart, I would see it as you just have whoever's in charge of that portfolio, whoever is in a committee or whatnot, that's for the drill down of that person and how they plan to set up their kind of drill down of their org chart. So rather than having 1 or 2 on there, it would just be, in my opinion, just 1. So if we bring up, let's just say, you know, planning, you know, if Chad's in charge of planning and Peggy is on that committee, we would still refer to it as planning with Chad, right? And then Chad can decide what he delegates to Peggy or whomever else. but that's internal to Chad, not for the rest of us. Because otherwise, yeah, it can get confusing. Well, I talked to Peggy about it. Well, that's great. Peggy's not the number one, Chad is, right? So I think that maybe doing an adjustment to the org chart where we just take off the twos and we just leave it as who's in charge of the portfolio. Isn't that, what do y'all think?
Well, my comment on that is that I actually think it's helpful. I like it, and it kind of gives me some backup, knowing that Peggy feels as though that's number two for her, and it helps me with knowing that I've got some pretty major things on that I've got backup there. And I think if that disappears, like if I were a two and I got it was disappeared on that, I wasn't there, I would not be as feeling as though I had a little bit of responsibility for it. And so far, for Peggy and I on this specific one that you're using, it's worked beautifully. Like Peggy and I have worked really well. Yeah, I believe.
Well,
Peggy, you can answer.
No,
Peggy,
I
too.
agree.
That's my feeling on
It puts it on my chart and it makes it important to me.
it. Whereas if it disappears,
It might not be as important to me.
Understood.
But Tia goes in a group.
Okay.
I just wondered she said internally, if you guys would be able to manage that internally without having it on this chart, like Chad understands and you understand. Chad understands that he has Peggy on his committee and he could have a list of people on his committee. And then you guys could have, I don't know, your own chart or something, but I just wondered if that would.
go ahead, Don, you were next, unless you want me to specifically just talk about that.
I'll go next and then you can.
Yeah.
I think it's important actually to have a second because I may be on vacation backpacking and nobody can call me. Chad, you may be somewhere and nobody can call you. And so I personally believe it's useful to have a person, planning in your case, engineering in my case, but somebody who's number two, so that somebody else knows what's going on when that person's not available. And having ones and twos on this doesn't confuse or worry me at all.
Well,
I understand from an org chart perspective, there needs to be a person it's their portfolio, but being a war planner, I like redundancy, and a redundancy is a second person who's also tagged is also knowing a lot about it.
And I'll just add to it too, that I think is an important thing is that I think with us just getting started, we're also filling out these categories. We're like,
Yes.
as individuals, we're recognizing, okay, this might be really new for us, and having that extra added expertise from somebody else within the group can help out with it. And like I said, I'll reinforce it by saying it's worked in the first week of doing this immensely for me. Because Peggy has kind of stepped up and helped out in some areas that I've needed some help and been great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, so, and just to clarify, my suggestion wasn't to remove anybody from the number two, it was the visual
Right.
on that sheet. Because then when we get down into personals, then, you could, but this is up for discussion, and if that's the way you guys like it, it stays, right?
It's good.
Can I ask?
You guys are the ones with those portfolios, so it's your decision.
Yeah.
Can I ask who sees this?
At the moment, nobody, but it is information that would go out to the public. People do, we do report who is the person to call when it comes to, special events, for example, something under your portfolio. So if Huntsville Town wants to do, an event that crosses the boundary of their town, who do they call? What tends to happen is people all call the mayor, right? Because they just think that's the person. And that's not the case, not only in how we're set up, but also just the weak mayor system. And so it is something eventually that would go out to the public of, any questions about special events, call Tia Shaw. And here's the number to do so, or here's her email. So eventually this would go to the public.
I think we put it on the website and we'll have a mock of that
It
soon.
would,
So it's gonna be, once we go live, it will be out for the folks to see.
Yeah,
My question would be, would that confuse them?
that was
I
what.
don't think so. 1 and 2 is
So
pretty
they would go
simple.
straight to you, maybe?
And that's great. I would direct them to check, or field what I could in that. send it to Chad. So, but he would be the buck stops here person.
It had been my intent, subject to you guys looking at the draft slides I'm gonna use at my town hall on Wednesday night, that I was gonna show this, assuming that we agreed that this is final, because people are asking me, who's in charge of this and this? And I say, well, here's who is administering the portfolio from the city council. Eventually, that person will be able, once we're up and running completely, be able to explain how they're doing what, but here's who to call, so to speak, right here. So it was my intent to show it on Wednesday.
Yes.
So as a recorder, I just want to remind everyone that this is a public meeting, so some of this will be part of the minutes.
Mhm.
It's a public meeting, so it will be, it will be visible,
Yes.
even. I don't know that I'm not gonna have the minutes out before your town hall, but it will be there.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to, because I can take this slide and put it in my slides real easy here. Once I can get the slides to come up on my computer, because the internet's not working on this side. Yeah.
I don't, yeah, so we don't typically take a lot of public comment, but did you have something you wanted to add in?
I'm just your clarification on our engineering and development, there was this, I think, municipality, I can't read it, but what are those two, like, sub?
Yeah, can I answer that one?
Yes, absolutely.
So, between my colleague Chad and I, there's engineering for the city includes just general engineering.
All right, so, any questions about this? Do we need to have a discussion about it?
My only comment on this, and this is not a big deal right now, in TIA, I'll just use you as an example. There is not a budget for TIA. There is a budget in each of those portfolios.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes. In fact, so the budget line, the word budget is not necessarily located where it would be.
Right.
It would actually be business licensing budget.
Right.
Special event budget,
Budget.
yes, exactly. But it's in there to remind us, everybody's gonna have their budgets to manage and whatnot. We didn't put the numbers in.
Yeah.
And again, just to reiterate, this isn't meant to be your scope of work. This was meant so that you didn't have a blank sheet of paper and say, I don't know where to start. It was just meant to give some ideas. You might cross them out and you certainly would want to add to. Yes.
So for example, business licensing, meeting with the county, they would be the ones that, like, I would work with them on how they're going to run it, since we have an interlocal with them. Is that right?
So we have an interlocal that describes the contract we have with them. So it'll describe what their job is and how much it costs, right? That if there is payment, some of our interlocals have payment, some do. So for example, and I think you've already started this process, but I would suggest sitting down with the person who does the business licensing so that you understand how the process goes. You set up with them the process of, so people are currently applying for their 2026 business license. The second step of applying for it is that we as a council have to ratify and accept those licenses during a public meeting. So you will have to have a process where the person at the county who's processing them sends you a list of everybody so that you can then bring it in and we can have it on the agenda as a list on the consent section of the agenda for a public meeting to say to approve the following business licenses. And that completes that public facing process. If there is cost involved, that's for you to manage in terms of how many hours they're working. I don't know, I don't remember the agreement with business licensing, but if it's
There's a cost per hour.
right, so then it's something that you would manage with them because they would send you an invoice or send an invoice to the city, and we need to make sure we back it up with, okay, here's what they're saying they did. Tia, you're in charge of this. Are they charging for what they actually did? Is it missing items or is it got over items? But that's the part of managing the budget. And we'll work together. Well, I mean, we're not turning anybody loose to say, go forth, you have no net, right? Like, we're all here to help each other out and discuss it. It's just that within the Open Public Meetings Act, it's a discussion that can't be had with more than 3 council members. So we want to get everybody on the same page today, and then we can have, Tia can call me up and say, hey, I'm confused about this, and we can work that out. Or she can call one other council member, but not 2. Yes, absolutely.
I don't know if we raise hands in work sessions or if we just talk. So in any event, as I understand it, each of our portfolios were filled out by you, Sharon, with a start of what brainstorming might look like, probably based on AI.
It was based on AI. I said, what would be council members' responsibility for this portfolio item?
So it's a good start, and it's not a substitution for our own analysis. So
And an example of that real quick, Kay, is Peggy and I just spent the last couple hours doing a quick brainstorming on just the planning and land use section of this. And so we've taken each bullet point and expanded out from each of those on specific things that need to be done. Sharon's part of that too, and Fred also. So
Great.
yeah.
that's good.
And that's exactly what we want to have happen for everybody, and however everybody wants to do it. But Sharon used AI to help get some things down, just to get the juices flowing. Again, not meant to be a complete list, and it might have things where you take it off because you're like, that's actually not applicable to our situation. So it was just to get your juices flowing so you can have a blank sheet of paper. Okay, so any other discussions about what these slides look like? Everybody's got one, and again, they're not meant to be complete. But they're to give you the idea of where to go and something to work off of. It sounds like some of you already have. There's no reason to go through them in detail because again, they're for you to fill out and put together. So,
Okay.
any other discussion about those
There's
particular
a
slides?
comment on it is that, or I guess a question is going forward with it being, a definition of the scope of work, but are we looking at this as we build into becoming more experienced, that this is a working scope of work, that as we go through, we could see that there's needs to be some adjustments made
Absolutely.
as we go along.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
good. And I guess to that point then, as I initially look at my list there, it's not pulled up here, but I'm over planning land use, which is a lot of things in the interim, in the next, hopefully not very long, but 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, where we're providing a general plan.
Yes.
The zoning ordinances, a lot of different things underneath that. you know, I wanna be very upfront and say, you know, are we my other four or three topics there, building permits kind of falls under that, we're well into working with that right now. Engineering, Don just kind of explained that why I'm put into that too. It makes sense to have me there, but I'm just wondering and questioning, should I keep the other things on there? Is everyone confident with as far as going forward, like the law enforcement possibly? I forget why I got had law
Oh,
enforcement.
are you asking, should you
Just-
start
yes.
shifting some responsibilities
Yes.
because planning is such a large portfolio?
Just
That's
throwing it out
totally
there.
up for discussion, sure.
And I have law enforcement on mine also, so,
There was one and two for law enforcement.
oh, there's
What we
one,
voted on then was Chad handed me the second on law enforcement and Peggy was number one.
yeah.
And
So,
Peggy was number one, so
Oh,
Chad
okay,
was.
so good reason for me to be questioning that then.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we agreed last time we talked about this, that Peggy's number one and I'm number two.
Okay.
So that's just
This is our chart.
And that, frankly, Chad,
Yes.
that's the
Check-
easiest
check
one.
I know, I know that. Yeah, I understand.
Thank you for giving me the easy one.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
You guys are
So-
experiencing that Chad and I can.
You know what might have happened is Chad, because on your slide with everybody, you have it correct, it's the individual Chad slide that was incorrect, but it might be that your brain was thinking, because he's in charge of code enforcement as number one, and you might have accidentally wrote law enforcement.
It's possible.
good point.
I didn't have a sentence.
Yes, and you don't have code enforcement on there, so yes, so
Okay.
in fact, his law enforcement is code enforcement.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Chad, to your question, I think it's legit as you get going on this, or you and Peggy, because Peggy's your number two on most of that. If it's not tenable short term, come to us and we can right size this, because you've taken on an enormous amount of
Yes.
work.
It's on my phone.
Engineering and other stuff is big too, but what you've taken on is enormous. Now, they're all sort of tied together, which is why it all got bundled in.
Yeah, and hence
You let
why
us know.
I wasn't excited to have Peggy taken off that. I'd like to be my weak person.
I agree with that. So what I'm offering to you is your peer councilman, if it is not
Yeah.
tenable, come to us. Because we, the five, not technically by law, we're the ones doing this.
Yeah.
So we get to decide what we're doing or not doing. So let's figure it out and get it done.
in the short term, while we're working on all of the general plan, the zoning, the ordinances, all of that, and the building permits, could you take on the engineering piece? Or is that too much?
I will practically, but I think it's important that over time, it's recognized that part of engineering is part and parcel to planning and permitting.
Right.
And it's reflected financially in how the budget is set up.
Yeah, but the budgeting part of it's easy because the way we're doing our task orders in engineering,
Yeah.
but practically I am. I mean, short term, I'm helping you guys, but I'm managing that part of it right now.
So to close out the comment that was started by Chad and to make sure everyone's on the same page, I'll remind you that when we were, during the interim, when we were all kind of putting stickies up on the wall about who will do what, it was relatively arbitrary, like, sure, I'll do it, and then on top of that, we hadn't actually gotten into the meat of it yet. We hadn't started to do it. So I want everyone to be clear that this can be a breathing document. If you get in, I mean, I hope we all are aware, planning is the largest portfolio, especially right now. We have a moratorium, but there's a ton of work to get us out of the moratorium, and we want to get out of it as soon as possible. And so, because of the Open Public Meetings Act, it's not something that everyone on council can help with. We're restricted by how many people can meet together at the same time, but we all have the shared goal that this all needs to happen, and so there are things that everyone can participate in different avenues. But if we find out that that is just taking all of, say, Chad's time, then some of the other stuff needs to be redelegated, and it should be a breathing document as we get in and learn the practicality of doing certain portfolios. Some are way more labor intensive than others, and that's just how it is. So maybe that person only has one or two rather than four, and somebody else has six because there's six smaller ones. So don't feel uncomfortable asking to redelegate because we're just getting started. I imagine we'll redelegate a few times. All right, what was, so we were not gonna go through every single slide in detail, everybody sees theirs. Any other questions or comments or suggestions that come up to you? For example, that Chad is not a law enforcement. Anything else that comes up when you looked at your slide or?
Should we show the slides to the public real quick?
Sure, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Just reads. So I never got it.
They were saying yesterday, 2:30.
They may have been, but we didn't.
That's
good.
For the public, this is Peggy's slide right now. We're just gonna go through each one so that they can see them real quick, okay, guys?
Yes.
This one is Kay's slide for everyone paying attention with us.
Read fast.
It's like me, there's a lot of words.
You can pause for recording and read.
It's also not something that's staying. Those were suggestions that then the council member is to fill out.
And then this is Chad's slide.
Over title, really.
Yes, his law enforcement is code enforcement.
Yeah.
And then this is Don's slide. And then next up.
All right.
But just from an organizational perspective, this is very much like a job description, you know, that you can shape, but it's saying here are the functions to oversee that area that you want to pay attention to. And there was an earlier document I had sent that was helped by AI talking about what would this look like for council members to oversee these functional areas. And that's still available on the Google Docs. I can recirculate that again.
Okay.
You guys will see when you see the engineering plan that I've used a verb deliberately, administer. And I chose that word because it's actually what the Utah statute says that 5 of us do. If we don't by ordinance or resolution give a job to the mayor, we, the 5, administer the function. So you'll see that in the plan when I get the plan to everybody. And broadly, administer means what? You're the boss of it. So, yeah, with all the management functions associated with it.
Okay, next up you have 1B.
So next up, actually, could you worry about the Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so the next thing we said that we looked at things top down, which was looking at the way that we're, putting the organization together. The second thing was to look at things bottom up. So we had a work plan while we were busy transitioning to a city that had some items that were incomplete. And I believe Janet wanted to take credit for some things that we've done.
No, not Janet wanted to take credit.
I love how you said that.
Janet noted there were some things that were done that the council should get credit for.
There we go.
Sorry, that was, and that, I guess the question is, can we go through this and match up the portfolios to the items? For the ones that are incomplete.
Sure, so you have the one you sent over, correct? I think it was 1.5, January 5th.
Yes.
Okay, if we go through, so you had in red, all the things that were not complete yet.
Yes.
If we can go through some of those, because I had updated, but I saved it under a different title. There are some things that were not complete that are now complete, and I want to make sure that we all note that. Because we're all doing different things and want to make sure everybody's on the same page. So for example.
And the red didn't show up on Google Drive, so what I've done instead was, and if this shows up. This shows up.
Okay,
I
so the shades.
highlighted the columns that we would want to fill in terms of identifying
Oh, you're on sheet 1, okay.
who the council person would be.
Uh-huh,
As well as what would be the responsibility, the area of responsibility. So this one I figured we knew that, land use planning is going to Chad and it's land use. So that one I just filled in, but for the most part, I didn't fill it in, just because. And we can, the question is, do we do that as part of this meeting? Or do we want to do that to say, assign it as work and have people do it outside of this meeting? When we can do it either way. So
The rest of the agenda, how long
the rest of the
do you
agenda,
think that will take?
we're not even at an hour.
Yeah.
The rest is, it's not gonna take an hour and 20 minutes.
How about if we go through the rest of the presentation?
Yes,
And then we'll use the available time to go back and do
Okay.
assignments.
agreed.
So I guess, do we want to notate the items that were completed?
We can do that afterwards. Let's finish with the presentation of portfolios, and I know you were going to discuss Kanban and planner, so that everybody has an idea of.
Yep.
Of what we're hoping.
The last one.
I prefer you call me Dana while we do this.
It's been a while.
When do we get to discuss Kanban?
Right now.
It sounds like a really delicious food. Would you like some Kanban?
It is, it's a dessert.
Sounds like
Very
we're going
happy.
back.
Okay.
I know, combine.
That's what I had.
So, okay, so we're this slide. Okay. There you go, okay, so Kanban, just so you know, is part, people have heard of being lean or Six Sigma, and then certain methodologies where they say, okay, if you do this, it'll help a company improve its process, it'll make a company more efficient. And so this is a method that actually, just to give you a little bit of background, it started in Japan in the 1950s. It was Toyota that started it. And what they did was they said, we want to define and visualize the workflow. So everything had to be publicly available to look at, so that anyone in the company could go up and look at the status of anything that was going on. The second was actively manage the workflow, so that you can see it, and as it's updated, you have an update that is available. And then lastly, if you do that, you're going to be able to focus. You work on the items that are in your list, that are in your current to-do list, rather than getting scattered and trying to do everything under the sun. So it gives you one place to look, to focus, to get the work done. And what that does is it helps to improve your workflow and your throughput. So that's the whole thing behind Kanban. It is a simple practice. You can see from the picture that the lady there she has what is called a Kanban board. She's doing Kanban with Post-its on a wall. When I worked at VDOT, the infrastructure team actually had a big whiteboard that they used, where they set up their Kanban board on the whiteboard, and every day they would have a quick meeting. All of the people on that team would stand up, go over to the board, update the Post-it notes, and then go back to work. And then on a weekly basis, they could have a bigger status meeting where they talk about, okay, these are not on our list right now, but they should be. So it was a visual way, anybody on the team, anybody at VDOT, me, I could go look at their board and see what that team is doing. So that's just part of the reason and rationale for using something like this, is to help with the transparency of our city, just to show who's doing what and what are we doing. And I've said too much.
Yeah, it was a good description.
Okay, so the benefits, like I just mentioned, is better transparency. You know what's going on. You can see what's going on. And it's a good communication tool just from that fact. You can see what's going on. If you have a question, it's easy to ask the question. It's like, what's this? And you can find out easily. So you can see how the work is flowing. The Kanban board usually starts with work that's not being done, and then moves into the status of work that is being done, and then moves into the status of, oh, this is complete. It's easy and simple. And you can easily just walk through and see where things are. You can see if it's done or not. You can identify problems. A lot of times in Kanban boards, they'll have a column saying work is blocked. There is something that is in the way so that the work cannot be completed within the time frame. And so that's another one, and it's simple. It's like, we can teach the council in 10 minutes.
So let's do it.
Maybe 15.
Let's do it.
Maybe 15. So she can do it. It's very, very simple way to manage work. You don't have to have a Microsoft project. You don't have to have a degree in project management. You can easily take it up, easily do it. And just about everybody is able to do something like this. So, and it's easy to read. That's the other thing, is for the people that need to be looking at this, it's easy to read and keep up and know what's going on.
So Sharon, I think we're on board with it.
Okay, so
Let's move in.
just in terms of the steps. The first thing is that you have to understand what are the stages of work that you need to have. So these are they call them buckets on top. And it's usually you have something like a to-do list, and then you have a to-do list, and then what you have is a work in progress list, and then you have a done list, and then I would also say we have a block list where we have anything that is stopped, where the work is stopped. That gives us 4 lists. Those are buckets, and then what you have is, they call them cards. It's a task. It can be a Post-it, or it can be, if you have a tool, then we call it a card that says this is what the work is. And then oftentimes you'll actually have a series of steps underneath it that identify and outline what needs to happen for that work.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide.
Okay,
Here's a
next
vision.
So here's the visual. So you can see this is a product called MS Planner. So it's part of Microsoft 365. So it's part of the portfolio of tools that we have. And it's a standard process. So the thought was that we would have 4 buckets. If we have a bucket called backlog, that means everything that we haven't touched yet. Then we have a bucket called in progress, a bucket called blocked, and a bucket called completed. The cards are little squares where you can add a task, and then underneath that you can add subtasks. One thought was that we include a label to show which of the portfolios this item belongs to. So what I did was create one that's called planning. So that set of tasks would be to support the planning portfolio. We can use that or not. It was just an idea. The last thing is you can assign a due date. So for that set of tasks, you can say all of these need to be done by X date.
So, sorry, I'm just gonna ask that you reframe the presentation to the city council, because when you say you, it starts to sound like the audience can assign a due date for the city council.
No, the city.
No, right, I know, I'm trying to make sure, because we also, what we wanna have is the city council understand the format we're hoping to organize each portfolio, so that in future work sessions, we're able to say, all right, let's pull up the planning planner, the planning Kanban. So that we can see how everything's going and where Chad and Peggy need help because they're blocked by something, and maybe they need the mayor to make a phone call because it's just not happening, and whatever else. We want to be able to have each portfolio have this process so that everything is streamlined and we can pull everybody up and everybody knows how to read it. So I guess one question is, I know some council members didn't receive the email, some did. That'll be a discussion for updates. Those that did see this, or those that are looking at it now, do you have questions for Sharon about this? Like, so she's got these 4 different columns. One is backlog, one's in progress, one's blocked, one's completed. Any questions regarding
Do we have
that?
access to this? Can we look at like, where would I find MS Planner?
We are gonna show you.
Yes, that'll be next. She's gonna show you.
Sharon and Kathy are gonna help you support you.
I'm looking for the picture, I don't see. Are they shared for all of us?
So even if it's Chad and I working on planning, everyone has access.
That's the
Okay.
thought, is that we would have it be shared.
Good.
So that people can see,
See what's going on.
but not necessarily that outside people can edit or do you automatically have that ability?
Depends on how the security that it's set up with, and we have our security expert right here. So there will need to be decisions about who it is that has access to it and what levels of access. And if, say, for example, a portfolio has a lot of committee members that are not part of the council, we'll have to determine how we can provide them with access, or if we provide them with access. So there are still a number of decisions before we need to go.
My suggestion would just be that the portfolio head and maybe the number 2 have editing ability. Because what happens, and we've all experienced this during the interim, someone didn't realize by pushing a button what the consequence would be, and then you go, oh, I just deleted something, right? So, or I moved something into a different bucket that wasn't supposed to be, and now people are confused. So if we just, I would suggest, you all make your decisions, but I would suggest just the number 1 and maybe the number 2 have editing ability, everybody else can view, and that's it.
And I think, did you have a question?
I'm cautiously optimistic. The engineers have a one-to-many spreadsheet that has what, by when, by who, by how much. Most of that.
And this can be managed at a high level.
Right, so I'm saying to my peers, engineers, because engineers love spreadsheets, that's the world we're working in. But the engineers are willing to try this out, and I think we will try it out and see if it works for us. I am reticent to commit yet to who should have access and who should be managing it. Yes, we should have access and we should manage it. I'm gonna suggest that people like our city engineer and our city planner and people like that should have access, but we can figure that all out later. Those decisions don't have to be made today.
Correct.
One thing I would suggest is that at a high level, very high level, the high level activities be represented on the planner board, so that you have the visibility like you would have for any other activity. But that if you have, an engineering project is significant and has, a significant number of tasks, that is not appropriate for a planning board.
You and I are in violent agreement on that.
And
I would like to see us choose a couple portfolios or projects and try this out and make sure it works for us before we all go beavering away and working, and we crash and burn. I think it will work for us. But none of us have used it before, so before we put a whole bunch of our hours into this, let's make sure this sucker works for us.
Yeah, and I think that's my point too, is the idea behind it, I think is amazing, and if it works as smooth and as clean as is being explained to us, wonderful, but there are other ways that some people's brains just work and organize things and get things through, and I would hate to have that process be slowed down, thinking that they have to do it this way. Does that make sense going forward? Kelly, you're shaking your head on that, but that my brain just thinks that way. Like there's some things that you can just get from A to Z, and if you have to think, oh no, I've got to put this into Kanban, then it slows down the process of getting things done possibly.
but if you have one task.
Do you share that, Don?
Yes,
On that,
I do.
okay.
But I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yes, I try it, and that's why, yeah.
I will say, we're doing something very difficult. I was shaking my head and knowing that you can use whatever you need to get you to your list of tasks. This is just a very simplified way of looking at, like Nick had used Microsoft Planner, whatever it was.
Project,
Project, very detailed. This is simplified of it. I do think we need a common platform for all of us to see what's going on in a complicated environment. And so otherwise, I may do my version, maybe I like Venn diagrams and Post-its, or someone else may like something else, but I think Janet is mayor to understand what's going on with all of our work but also us needing to understand each other's portfolios. So again, I think getting a common platform with a common language is very important.
And if it needs to be at such a high level, that what you have is a one-liner. And then your comment in that one-liner is, I got a detailed plan.
Yeah.
It's somewhere out.
Yeah.
That would be sufficient.
Right.
Because in progress doesn't say if you're 10%, 50%, 90%, it just says you're working it.
Yeah. So did that make sense, Chad?
It does, but okay, I'll push back a little bit on my thought process with it. I come from a world of sales and I'm a salesperson. So in the world of sales, oftentimes you're you're having to do reports for the sake of doing reports, which slows down the vibe and just the flow of a salesperson. And sometimes you're spending time in an office where you're not good at this stuff. You recognize what you're good at and what you're not good at. Kay, in explaining that, is it's obvious. It makes sense to her, and I'm not against it. I'm telling you, I don't want to just like Don kind of nailed it with the way he explained it. You don't want to commit 100% and then realize, oh, I'm having to go back to this just to do this, but it completely slows down the flow of what I'm doing over here. You don't want that. If a personality is just going with my planning, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, I gotta go fill out the Kanban just to make sure everyone's up to date. It could throw off the entire mojo of the project, is my point there. And I see it all the time in the world of sales.
Well, and I will just respond. Yeah, you have to do what suits you. But also when I worked in organizations, it was always the salespeople. It was hard to get their data.
Absolutely.
They were out there talking to customers. Yeah, so you're used to a different environment. But this is, use what helps you to do the flow, but realize there's an oversight important issue here in dealing with these public areas that each of us needs to be understanding. We need to have some common platform for reporting what we're doing and where it is. And you can complicate it if you want to, or keep it very simple and high level.
And my only pushback, go ahead.
Yeah.
May I just say, my name is Steve Milsom. I'm older than dirt, but and in my former life, I used this Kanban on a number of huge projects down in Four Corners area, and there is reason for for being cautious, but the big problem I noticed when we were doing it is it takes a pretty hefty commitment at the front end, particularly to get, so, and you guys are gonna be loaded right out of the box. And so that's my only function, but I will say this, we had to get somebody to ride shotgun on it almost all the time. And of course, we probably try to put too much budget stuff in it. So, depending on caution, but it does take, somebody's got to ride shotgun on the thing the whole time, but after a while, it works. I mean, we had, my projects were multi-billion-dollar projects when we had 10 governors involved in the whole thing, plus a number of tribal agencies. And the interesting thing is after you do get it going, then you've got to convince people to go look at it, right, to read it, before you start asking questions. And so, but anyway.
Can I see if I understood? So what I heard from you was that it's got a steep learning curve up front.
Yes.
That it has a steep learning curve up front, but once you've got it up and going, it's very helpful.
Yes.
And you're concerned that because we're going to be really overloaded, especially getting this city up and running, and the learning curve comes up front. So there's that to be cautious of. But if we can pull it off, this is very helpful. Did I get? Is that?
I think, yeah, it was for us.
Yeah.
I mean, they were.
If people look
But
at.
also ask,
Well, the point was that each work session we pull it up.
Yeah. And would that be riding shotgun? Cause he said.
Right, so what would, do you mean like an IT director that's helping with it, or you
Sharon.
mean?
Okay,
We have to have a Sharon.
what's gonna happen is, this is gonna stimulate questions,
Mhm.
okay? And so, you gotta have, you can't, it's like you were saying, you just can't let it be laissez-faire. Gotta have somebody saying, okay, well, this is a good question, maybe we'll make a modification. Or, well, no, we've already done that, or, and that,
Mhm.
and so. In fact, we brought in a consulting firm just to do that, for that project.
So, well,
Other people would go.
I'll make point. Sharon's a very accomplished project manager. And she's serving as our recorder for the time being, but her expertise is project management. She's got all the certifications and degrees. So I think she'd be assisting us technically. And I
Did
think
you get voluntold for that there, Sharon?
We'll get used to it, technical stuff.
Sharon has told me I
Yeah,
organize.
that's Kathy, I tried to do it to you.
I organize, as she says, and I create procedures and systems. So this is that to tell us how to use these tools. And then I would imagine Janet and her meeting facilitation structure would have a routine review of these things, and we can all see how they are working and show how they are working. And my concern is if we don't agree on something like this, it becomes chaotic. And I witnessed that, well, chaos is too strong a word, but I lived through various phases of the incorporation process. It went very well when we had the spreadsheets everyone was following. And then when we went off and did our own thing, some of us had stoplight charts, some of us, would just orally report, others were doing other stuff. So you didn't get the overall view of how is work progressing. So we gotta have a common platform. Go ahead.
Let Tia go do
I agree with the common platform, the standardization of it. But did I just hear you say that Sharon would be our shotgun?
I don't think so.
Oh, I kind of. I did, right.
Advisor.
She was saying, when he said they hired an outside planning project manager, she was saying, we have you. So I heard it that way. That's the way I heard it.
But I'm not gonna be the one to tell the council what
Sure.
they're doing or not.
No, absolutely.
I meant to describe her as an advisor on how to use this system.
Mhm.
I think we all have to be accountable ourselves, and the best accountability is needing to come and share what it is you've done. And Janet would likely put this on an agenda, a work session agenda.
So
Dan was,
Sorry, go ahead, yes.
And then I'd like to jump in.
The five of us, Janet's not one of the five, are singularly responsible for administering the city by statute. So we've got to be able to hold ourselves accountable for administering the city. I am willing to try this sucker out. I'm with Chad. Let's try it out. Let's see if it works for us. If it works, let's go. But I'm cautious throwing all my energy into it while I'm doing everything else. So let's put our toe in the water. Let's see if it works. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, let's find a different platform. And Sharon, I don't want to put words in your mouth or commit you, but are you committed right now to assisting us learn the platform and use the platform?
And that was really why I raised my hand.
Right,
What-
I'm just giving you that chance.
I committed to assisting the council in terms of getting the Kanban boards started and getting people up to speed. And if I'll make sort of a commitment for myself, I can't for Kathy, but if somebody says, these are my tasks, I need somebody to enter all of these in for me because I don't have time to put them in my Kanban, then you could give them to me and I can get them in. I'm not gonna manage it because I can't manage your work. I can't move it across the board. You have to do that. But I can certainly help populate it for you just to take some of that time to put it on me instead of you, let's put it that way.
Give me a hiccup. And I'll give it to you in a second.
Yeah, Peggy was in there.
There was another volunteer that was willing to do project management for us, if we don't wanna put it all on sharing. Christine, that helped with our envisioning sessions, is willing to do project management for us, I encourage you to talk to you, okay? So we could always tap her to have her help oversee this instead of doing it all on Sharon.
We need to be clear what we want this thing to do for us. Because it's for us and for the citizens, but for us.
Right, and that was the outcome I was looking at, a lot of things, we can put all this time and energy into doing it. But what is the outcome for this? Just to see if that tasks are completed? So very similar to the project management chart we have.
It's replacing the project management chart that we had before at a higher level. I don't think we need to drill down in that level of detail. So it could be, we don't have to use the subtasks unless the subtasks are helpful. But just, you say, okay, you can even have one task called general plan and then walk it across.
Because what I don't want to have happen is put in all the upfront energy and then not have a product that we can use to show progress.
Right.
Chad?
Well, I was just gonna use the example that you just alluded to as far as the Gantt chart. So I think that that's a good example of that I think for me personally, that was the first experience for me using the Gantt chart. And I was at times thinking it was a bit too redundant going through it. Like each meeting we went to, we were like, and my personality was just like, just show me what I gotta do and get it done. And I'll report back to you. In saying that, I also want to say I need that because I need some sort of, and I've since implemented a Gantt type chart within my own work because it's such a helpful thing to keep going. And so I'm not, like I said, I'm not against something like this, but I also hesitate thinking that it could slow down that. What is the most important thing for us as a city right now is to get things done and recognizing that is the number one priority. I worry about it.
So to go back to what is the actual objective? The objective is to have a common platform because outside of corporate America, this is government. Things are public record, right? All information needs to be transparent. People need to be able to see it. And so whether or not you have your own personal method of how you do your work, that's fine. But there needs to be one common platform that is public facing. So So it doesn't have to be Microsoft Planner, but that is already in the package we've purchased, right? There are other software packages out there. We did Microsoft 365, this comes with it, if I'm saying that correctly. And so this is one we currently have at our disposal. If it turns out the learning curve up front is too steep, nobody likes it, that's fine, there are other things out there, but we need a common platform to flowchart work. You can, in your own administering of your portfolio, handle things how you like, but when we come into a work session, we need to be able to pull up stuff and talk to the public about what is happening with their tax dollars, what is going on, and where we are with things. And that way you can say, I'm getting stuck somewhere. We need to have something happen, right? We need to, and this is, so again, it can be as top level and without detail as you'd like it to be. You will be the one building your planner, but we need something on a common platform. That was the intent. If it's not planner, it's something else, that's fine, but we have this in our package.
As far as for your experience, Mayor, what did you use when you were on the Ogden Valley Planning Commission and what did Weaver County use as you were working with them? Did they use something that helped them out with that?
So, planning commission wise, no, we didn't do any.
You know, to give to the citizens, I mean, to show that, what you just said, how important that is to.
Well, so this is my first time working in government. I watch work sessions of the county, but everybody kind of does things differently. For example, I just came out of the annual recap of Ogden City's fiscal year, and they did a whole state of the city, and they flow chart and do dashboards all over the place, and they have found it really helpful to be able to show the public progress as well as at the end of the year calculate how much money they've saved, how much money's down, because they dashboard it every division. There are other people who maybe that's just not their forte and that's not how they do it, but, so this is a suggestion, again, for very first work session out there. We're, tossing this out as this is a software package we currently possess. We need a common platform. If it turns out everybody doesn't like it, so be it. But I would say let's give it a shot. Let's find out if we don't like it by using it. I have not opened it yet to build one, and so I'm not going to say I reject it because I haven't even played with it yet.
We need training. If I can.
We're getting right into it.
Stumble through it, then.
We're there.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
So,
And just one quick comment, it's very similar, we tried stoplight charts and those are simplified versions, but they can still use a spreadsheet. These 3 columns are very much like, red, yellow, green. So it's just another way to visualize what you're doing. Go ahead.
Next up on the agenda is training.
Yay.
Well, there were 2 items that we didn't talk about that were on the Kanban board that were noted. One was a due date. And, this is to try to for us, again, to be accountable to dates. Because we have budgets for at least the 6 months, I'm pretty sure we want to get as much done as we can and maximize the use of our budget for the first 6 months. The second thing that's in there that we didn't mention was that you can assign someone the responsibility for that card, for the large card. So that you could say who it is that is responsible and accountable for the card. For the due dates, if you go beyond the due date and you're late, it will, the product will send you an email so that you know you're late. So, it gives you, it pings you, it just lets you know you're late. It doesn't do anything beyond that, but at least it lets you know you're late. So the last thing that we wanted to do was that Kathy has actually started building a Kanban board for IT. And we wanted to show it to you and then just very quickly and simply show you, how would you add a task? How would you do some of these things that we just talked about, just so that you could see how difficult it is. And the commitment that Kathy and I had made was that we would help set up the initial Kanban boards so that you don't have to do that. So we could give you, like a mayor Kanban board and a District 1 and through 5 Kanban board, and at least give you a place to start where you're not having to start from scratch and say, okay, how do I even start this?
Yes, and on top of that, just as a reminder, about maybe it was a week ago, Kathy had sent out links for various Microsoft 365 trainings. One of them was for Microsoft Planner. So all you need to do is get into that email, click on the link, and Microsoft 365 will have you walk through how everything works. And there are tons of YouTube videos, as people explaining things as well. So, but Kathy's going to show us something she's put together, and then they have also agreed to help everybody individually.
Tia's got a question.
Just clarifying, so are you saying, so first of all, do we contact you, Sharon, individually? You said you would set up individual.
What we'll do is we're going to set up a starting point for you, and then send an email and say, here it is. And we can set up some time to get with you, to walk you through it. So I would say, we're with, I don't know, I can't make commitments for Kathy's time, but the idea was that we would get these pulled together quickly for at least all 6. So mayor plus 5 council. And then depending on how you want to manage it, you could create more detailed Kanban boards.
Okay, and I did look at those videos and I looked at Planner. I probably didn't look closely enough to see Kanban.
Okay.
So
Kanban is one way to use Microsoft Planner. It is a much more robust tool that has many more capabilities that, unless you want to go down that path, we're not expecting anyone to try to learn those. It has task list, my plan, to-do list, my plan, to-do list,
Okay.
boards,
Yeah.
more. We're not expecting you to know all of that, which is why we'll help get it set up. Show you how to manage this simply, and you don't have to learn the rest unless you want to.
Mhm. Let's see Kathy's
Or
board.
Kathy, you got your board?
We're gonna have to change the name to Combine
Yeah.
instead of,
I'm telling, it's, yes.
at least that has relevance to it. Kanban.
Okay, let's see.
Way bigger, I guess.
Are you in dark mode?
She is.
Okay.
Exactly.
So I'm in planner, right? Show me a Kanban and planner where I am.
So, so she used a project management tool. Set up buckets instead of using our 3 buckets, so project management buckets are initiating, planning, executing. We'll just use the 3 saying, we're not working on it, we're working on it, and it's done.
Mhm.
So it'll be simplified over this. And see the Glenn, and so she did a whiz bang one. We're
I
gonna.
have to issue to the council glasses, aren't we? Because none of us can read these.
Well, the glare too for that.
So, okay, so.
There we go.
Can you see it?
Much better.
Can you see it? Okay. So, all right, you can see, just to show you what's there. Here we have a task that is already created. You know, the website one launch, and then what she did underneath website one launch was to put some subtasks underneath it in terms of what it needed to be able to complete that launch. Now, that's your discretion as to how deep you go. You could just have that high level. If. Okay,
I just opened the card, made it easier for you to go.
well, I was gonna say, maybe you could talk to it instead of me.
There we go.
So I also love Kanban, I use it for my own company. It'll take a little bit of time to get used to, guys, but once you do, it makes it a lot easier. Alright, for our website 1.01. I have it in my executing bucket or however you guys wanna say, I'm working.
In progress,
in progress, yeah.
There you go. And I set my progress task to in progress, because that's what I'm working on. And for us, this is an urgent thing. We want this website up now, yesterday, today, whatever, we'll take it. So I didn't set a start date or a due date for this, just because it's kind of hard to know when someone else that's doing the work is gonna finish the work. So I just harass them every day. I added a note section just to say what we're mainly focusing on is a communication and transparency 1.0 launch, so we're not adding anything like bells and whistles, that'll be our 2.0 launch. And making sure we remember to add that Ogden Valley link on it so that everyone can see those cameras and fun stuff. I created some checklists for us, and we got that domain created, we provided that 1.0 folder that Peggy and Kia and the team helped create. So the rest are things that we need to do still, so we need to review that website build, which we're hoping to do later today, they're gonna send it to us. Then we need to review those changes and correct any before we have them published, which is part 2 after today for us. And then I need to ensure I train the city council's communication team on how to add new updates for when new public meetings are happening or something urgent needs to be published to the site, you know, in 5 minutes or the next day, whatever, you know, that update would be. And then I have to ensure the recorder knows how to post public meeting notices, because they can come up on the website as well, from my understanding, so I gotta make sure I train her, that she knows how to do that. And we needed to ensure a sign-up sheet so that people can give us their emails, so we can email them these updates that we do. And then I left myself a question, because I wasn't sure on the answer. Are we putting audio or video public meeting replays on the website? So then I can remember, I need to ask Peggy and Tia about that, because they are on the website committee, and they are my bosses.
What happens when you complete a task? What do you do?
I just click the box right here.
And it stays there and shows complete by
Yeah,
that, right? Okay.
You can see
Yep.
there are some that are clicked.
Yep. Yep.
And if I'm wrong, I said, I'll get that.
And you Kathy created the 3 major categories, whatever it was, hasn't started, finished.
Yeah, I added a few extra just because in IT, I have to, like, if something breaks, I'm gonna
Right,
monitor it.
We have the flexibility to create what makes sense within our portfolio.
Yeah, you can add your own buckets
Got
right
it.
here, you can name it whatever you want.
Combine, thrashing,
Yep.
sowing, seeding.
Add tasks under them. When I am finished or I get stuck, I can just, click on my card and I can move it here to block. So then I know that's something stopping me from completing this.
Okay, I have a question. I'm sensitive to Chad's, as it's duplicating his natural work that he would do otherwise. But it looks like you're using this to help you identify the tasks you need to do. So if you use it as a work tool versus solely reporting tool, it will help you.
Yeah, that would be better, because you're not just putting in the effort to write that.
When you show them, we don't have a task that's blocked, but could you just add a task so they can see how easy it is?
Yeah, so I have a really good task to add here, Kay's broken laptop. So I have this snap right here, so I have an initiate, I'm actually working on this right now, so I'm executing this, she just doesn't know that. And what I can do is put in a description, a new laptop arrived and isn't working.
Although technically she'd be able to see it and say, hey, she hasn't forgotten.
Yeah,
She has it on her list.
and then you can get nitty gritty, like I have a service request open already with Tech Legion for this issue. So I'm gonna pull that over so that if Peggy looks at this, if she can talk to Tech Legion as well, you can say, hey, where are we on this ticket? And so I can add that in here, so she also has that data for that service ticket we have open. And then checklist items are, I'm waiting to see what they wanna do. There's probably gonna be some troubleshooting, or maybe I'm gonna send that laptop back and then give me a new one. But for right now, I'm not sure what those checklist items are until I hear back from them. And so right now, this would be technically a block task, because I'm waiting for Tech Legion to tell me what is next for us. How do I talk to this?
So do you have an overall screen now? This is one specific test. Can you go back to your overall?
And now you'll see it right here, see it is broken laptop.
Up there. Okay.
So you can see these are the buckets on the top. So if we were in a public meeting, say, and we needed to look at something like this, this would be the view we could look at, and we would see what are the tasks. This can be collapsed. So that you can see show it or not, so that you can actually see more of the tasks in there. And, so it could be just as a visual, here's what we haven't started on yet, here's what's in progress, here's what's blocked, here's what's complete. And it would be one-liners that just show what it is that we've got in our portfolio that we're working on.
Is that the expectation for each group, that we would, every work session, somebody would go through this?
We need to talk about how often and how much.
And what format?
And what format, because based on our history, many more hours than 2 hours will be spent if we try to do this all. Nor do I think we have to do this every week. For everyone.
Somebody said every week.
Yeah, so we should create a rhythm, once a month, roads, once a month,
Yeah.
permits.
Same format, is that how
Yes.
we worked it? And
Yes.
we have done it?
Or you can always just bring up your block ones, because those are the ones you might need help with.
No, that's true.
Yeah, there can be, when you're looking at how do you manage projects, sometimes if you have a lot on your plate, you do it by exception. You just look at the things where you need help or the things that are late. And then those are what you focus on. You don't focus on the stuff that's going well. And that may be a practice that we need to do, for this group, because we won't have time to look at all of the work in the pot because there's just so much work. Just food for thought on how we manage it, no decisions made, but we still have.
Look, and this is one,
Can I show you guys one that's actually in use, so you can see how?
sure.
Please remember, this is all private information, so there's
And then-
nothing here.
You're putting down.
It's not, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's nothing too.
Okay, I would like to wrap this discussion up within about 5 to 7 minutes.
So this is the one I use for my company, you can see all our complete ones here, you can see who was assigned to them and due dates, and then you can see which ones are in progress already. So then we know who owns each assignment and a whole big project list of things we'd like to finish. So you can get real nitty gritty with these or make them real easy to follow along, like we can easily see what we've completed, what we're currently working on, who's working on it, and then what we would really like to accomplish if we actually get the time. Excellent. So it doesn't have to get too crazy. It is pretty easy. It took me about a year to teach my employees how to use it and get into that habit. But after that, it went really well for us.
I don't think we have a year.
You may have a year.
I can share, I was gonna say, we'll have to help make the rest of the year.
Share to do.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, we're gonna-
Budget tracking in this, I don't,
There's not any built-in budget tracking functionality in this tool.
okay.
So, you know, Microsoft Projects has that, this tool does not. That's something that we still will need to figure out.
Well, yeah, it seems to me that, okay, one of the things that Don might want to know is, okay, what projects are unfinished and how much bucks do we have to come up with?
And this is the nature of my worry about duplicating work. So I will, and Nate, and you and your portfolio will decide how much detail here, because separately, we're gonna have invoicing and tracking against task orders.
We take it some other way.
Right, we're gonna do that, but what I don't wanna do is duplicate the work, because
Yeah.
that's the last thing any of us wanna do. So, yeah, well, we'll have to figure out how to do that. What's your name, Rebecca?
Dave knows.
Dave Mills, thank you, Dave, for that comment.
The financial system, once in place, will give you the greater reports.
Yeah.
Depending on.
But the financial system will not be tracking the task order level work that's going on within engineering and planning. Chad and I will have to be tracking, Peggy will have to be tracking that on these task orders we have with JUB. And then once a month or whatever, the invoices come, and that's where our city financial systems come into play, because they'll be tracking its bills paid.
That's okay, broader discussion in terms of how that's ending.
Right.
Nice job, you guys. Thank you.
Yes.
I feel better.
So as for today and today's agenda, what we're trying to accomplish is the discussion of a common tool that we're all able to do so that we can have the transparency for the public. And it may or may not be this, but this is what we have to start with. A little brief overview, and then so that everybody understands what we're expecting. You guys have your org charts. You guys know that you are to go off and populate it and figure all that stuff out because you are the administrator of those tasks. Knowing that both Kathy and Sharon have agreed to work one-on-one with people to help set up their initial page and to work with you if you have any questions or anything else. Links have already been sent for some training from Microsoft 365 on various things, whether it's your Outlook or your planner or whatever else. So basically trying to get everyone on the same page so we can go forth and tackle our to-dos and feel confident in doing that. That was the intent of that section of the agenda. Any comments, questions, suggestions about this?
Just to clarify, I know you told me, I just want to make sure, you will email us.
We will set up an initial board for you that has the structure. And if you give us some of your tasks, we can even pre-populate with your tasks so that you have them there. We would put them in the not started place. But then we can work with you one-on-one, help you get started. If you want details around the tasks or due dates or assignments, we can at least initially help you get that set up and make sure that you're comfortable doing.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we didn't need to contact you about it.
No, you gotta let us start.
So maybe the homework assignment would be for everybody to watch the links that were sent And then you will be sending everybody a board, and then you can start that one-on-one conversation about that in particular. But go ahead and do the homework ahead of time of watching training videos.
And do the homework ahead of time of brainstorming.
Yes, brainstorming your portfolio.
Right.
Exactly. Any other comments, questions, suggestions about this topic?
A simple question, I'm sure you guys. These will all be sitting out there in our city share thingy that will exist in Microsoft. Yes. Versus using the version that's sitting here on my,
It'll be
desktop.
where Kathy says they.
There we go.
It just auto connects to your team, so you can just see it from your Microsoft Teams app.
Good to.
When I set one up, does it automatically set up in the right place? Or do you guys map it first and then we do it?
No, so if you already have one, then all you gotta do is share it to the rest of the council. I can do it for you if you already have it created. If I walk over and do it on your laptop.
Being the least informed person on IT in this room, I look to you all to make sure it's in the proper place and not duplicate effort.
Yep, if you create one already, we can help you get it shared to everyone else.
Have you created one, Dan?
No, I'm playing with it, and then it occurred to me because it appears to live on my desktop. I know it doesn't, but I'm not one of them. They're the most important people in the world, and we know that. Okay, you guys will tell us what to do. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, suggestions about this topic on the agenda? Okay. Everybody feels like they know what they're doing here, right?
No, that's a whole different question.
But you know what your next steps are. You're
Yeah.
to fill out your scope of work and watch videos so that you familiarize yourself so that you are able to be a productive member of the one-on-one discussion when they send you your personal page. All right. There were a couple other things that we were putting on the agenda that had been taken off, and that so one was going to be the Gantt update. I'm going to pause on that for a second and say because Tia had days ago requested that it go on the agenda, and so I want to honor that and say the topic of OBPSA has been brought up multiple times. And so I know we've had a sudden flood of communications from various people in the city in Ogden Valley. So what would you, I'm gonna let you lead off on this.
Sure. So really my basic question is, how do we get the parks under the city's control? And I know we've talked about this before, but in conversations that I've had with people, it was suggested that possibly we could work with the county to give us the opportunity or the ability to appoint, because the state has given the county the power to appoint the OBPSA board. And that was really what I wanted to talk about. Is it possible for us to work with the commissioners, see if they would, rather than go through all of the lieutenant governor stuff, just allow us the opportunity to appoint people on the OBPSA board?
May I ask you, Tia, when is the next opening? I thought they were full. Are people leaving the board? Is this something that's urgent right now?
There are some people who are leaving the board.
Okay, so there's positions open.
Yeah.
And that's what you're asking, can we fill those new positions that are coming up?
Or just have the ability to when the opportunity comes up. But the information I have is that there are some that are stepping down.
Can I ask the question?
Mm-hmm.
What problem are we trying to solve? I'm not aware of the problem we're trying to solve. I realize there's a lot going on, but are you suggesting that we, the city, ultimately should be in charge of the board, and by helping appoint the new members, what problem are we trying to solve? I'm just trying to get caught up.
One of the suggestions that was sent to me was to follow the pattern, at least what I understand, that Huntsville has of looking at people that represent different areas. to me, it kind of sounded like what we did with our planning commission, where we tried to get people from the different districts to be representative of the board. I know that there's nobody from Liberty on that board. So,
is it for sure a problem, or we just know that we would want somebody from Liberty in here? I'm not arguing with you, I'm just trying to understand the
for
problem.
me, a Liberty resident with the Liberty Park in my area, I think it would be important to have someone from Liberty.
Okay, thank you, now I understand.
It is District Two, so just I had a communication yesterday with one of my neighbors and very concerned. So there's a lot going on. I think someday the park should be ours. I don't know if right now is the time. You know, I don't have the bandwidth right now to take that up. Maybe in 3 months.
Right. So that was I guess the suggestion, could we work with the commissioners to maybe fill positions with a process that I don't know, that,
Part of that may be a function of who is appointing the, to vacancies. And I understand that the commissioners, the county commission appoints to the vacancies. And, you know, have people from Liberty applied and consistently been rejected. Some of this, as I witnessed with the planning commission over years, was the problem of you wouldn't get a diversity of people applying, and so you didn't get certain people from certain areas. But for the short term, the solution might be get a strong 2 to 4 people to apply for an opening, so that that imbalance is corrected. And I think then also those people should advise the county commissioners there's no one from their area, and yet there's a prominent park in Liberty.
so I would wonder what the difference is between appointing and applying. Because as I
Well,
understand, they're appointed.
Usually to be appointed, there's an application process. The county will say there's an opening available on XYZ committee. And then people will apply for that opening.
Jen had a question.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the thought process from the people I've got thrown into it here in the last couple of weeks too, from the Zoom call T and I were on a week ago, is that the idea is those who've been on it for a while and those who were on it, who are not on it anymore, feel like it would be a natural progression for us to take over that in a governing sense. And I think that it does make sense, you know, based off of it being here in the Ogden Valley area. You may know more about that as far as the potential of that happening, and you can set us straight as far as how soon we should do that. I don't know if our workload should dictate whether we do that or not. If it is a concern of the citizens that they feel like it would be a smart thing to do sooner than later because of the newness of the new city, I'm in complete agreement with those who express their concern with the way that it is right now, that they think it would be natural for the city to take it over. I don't know anything behind the scenes as far as what that entails.
So let me explain, because not everybody fully understands how, and I don't know everything about how this works, except for the fact that this did come up even prior to incorporation. There was some question about would the incorporated city take over OVPSA, and in looking into it, what I had been educated on is OVPSA is not, it's outside the boundary of the city as well. So for example, Huntsville Park, and they have a Huntsville representative on the board. So that's just one example, but there are areas that they oversee that are outside of just the city. So it's not something that the city automatically gets to take over, because it's not just the city. And so between it being an incorporated area of Huntsville and unincorporated Upper Valley, it falls under the county. That just makes the most sense because the county is over both of those areas. It wouldn't make sense for just Huntsville to make appointments because there are areas outside of their jurisdiction. And it wouldn't make sense for us to make all the appointments because there are areas outside of our jurisdiction. So to me, that's logical that the county is the deciding body. There might be state statute and parks, tax stuff that I'm not even getting into. It's just logical that the area is not just within the city, so it's not the cities to control. I did have a brief conversation with Commissioner Harvey, who is in charge of parks and recreation for the county. And he explained that if this was something we really wanted to pursue, the process would be that we would have to dissolve OVPSA because it's an area that encompasses multiple municipalities. So that would have to completely be dissolved, which is something that the county would have to agree to do, by the way, because they're the legislative body. So we'd have to work with the county. OVPSA, as we know, would have to be dissolved, which means that also Huntsville would have to decide they're going to take over and just deal with theirs. We would take over and just deal with ours. I don't know how that works tax-wise with Parks and Rec taxes, which is the money that they have. So there's a lot to look into. My point of giving some of this information is this is not something that will be solved today or anytime soon, not only because we're busy setting up a city, but because we are not the deciding body in any of this. Huntsville has to agree, the county has to agree. We have a lot of investigation to do on all the moving pieces of it. So I wanted this on public record though, because there are a lot of residents who say it just makes sense to put it under the city. And at first glance, you would think so, but it's not. It's outside of our jurisdiction as well. So that is not something we control.
I think it's something we could look into though. I mean, in
Sure.
research, just is it a top priority for us right now? And
Right.
that would be my concern.
I'm still trying to understand how it makes sense for the county. I guess I didn't pick up on it.
I agree. I was gonna ask the same question.
Let me amplify with it. So there are other examples too. There's a TV tower up above Kay's house. That is a special recreation and TV district. It's the one that was established 30 years ago to broadcast TV out here. There are citizens who are suggesting we should take that one over. But that also services unincorporated Weaver County and Huntsville. So we face the same question about that. Because the entity is serving more than the city. In the case of the Parks Department, it serves Huntsville, it serves us, it serves the residents of Huntsville, it serves the residents of us, and it serves the residents of unincorporated Weaver County around us.
But what's the population?
Well, we're by far the greatest population.
I understand.
But to peel apart the onion, you would have to go back to the legislative body and peel apart the onion. Could it be done? Sure. By statute, it can be done. Tia asked I think a really good question early on. Can we go to the commission? I'm putting words in your mouth. Can we go to the commissioners and say, if we provided you a recommendation on who to approve based on the applicants, would you consider our recommendations when you approve the next commissioners or whatever they're called, members of their board? I imagine they would if we asked.
I can certainly start that discussion.
Because I think that's what you're trying to solve short term, right, Tia?
Yes.
There we go. Let's see if we can
Yes.
work a short term solution.
From what I hear, and I heard a lot over the weekend. There's much more in disputes with the PERC board than the representation issue. I think there are some really basic governance issues that they're trying to put in place. And frankly, it seems like a rather troubled transition with a lot of different stories going around about what's really happening. And so the best thing to do for the current time is try to understand what's happening. And I don't know if anyone planned to go tonight.
I've already told them I will go.
Okay,
And then we did it.
because I hear different things.
Yeah.
Okay.
One moment there, to Kay's point. All those water districts out there,
Oh, yeah.
all those sewer districts out there are all similar body politics into themselves that may or may not be following statute. So are they doing public notice? If you go out to the same public notice website we're posting on and search OVPSA or Ogden Valley TV antenna, you're gonna discover probably that not all public noticing has been going on. So this is what Kay's alluding to, because it's a lot of work. We discovered how much freaking work it is. So part of that is what's going on too, is the amount of work it takes to be a body politic to run things. Government art is body politics, people out there in Zoom land. It means a governing body.
Hey, Larson, do you have a comment?
Just, I was involved when the, Park Service District was created and worked for Huntsville. And we found it to be dysfunctional as far as Huntsville Park itself went. This Huntsville Park itself has their own budget and they dealt independently fine. And suddenly they were absorbed into this park district, and Kay, you are spot on. It was poorly managed. We didn't get the money we were supposed to from the park district, but we were still supporting our park a lot with the July 4th money that came in off of it. So my only suggestion would be, as you're researching this and going into it, for sure, including Huntsville in that discussion, because I don't know what their feeling is now, but at the time, it was one of those, is there any way we could leave our district and leave us alone and let us do what we do? That may change, I can't speak on behalf of him now, but that was the feeling. And for a long time, it was just poorly mismanaged. And so, yeah, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and that's why I think the county, as the supervising body, should have some real thoughts on that too, on how they're operating, what's happening, and taking our recommendation. That's a good suggestion, idea.
I'm happy to meet with Commissioner Harvey and start a discussion and learn more about how it works and what we're open to in terms of that. And speaking, of course, in keeping Mayor Sorensen involved in that as well. Anything else about OBPSA? It sounds like T and I will both be at tonight's meeting.
Yeah, I said I couldn't make it tonight.
Okay, so
What time is the meeting?
7:30. There are 15 minutes left in this work session. I did want to make sure that there's a point in time for any council comment, things that have come up that you want to make sure we can't really talk as a group about business unless it's a public meeting forum. This is a public meeting forum. What you got?
I got some feedback about our hours and requests to move to the evening for the work session so people could attend. I think we need to toss that out again for, looking at our structure and how we operate. I know it's hard to come back in the evening, but a lot of people can't make it or Zoom it during the afternoon.
It brings up a topic that, that people need to think about, people being, the city council needs to think about, everybody up here is dedicating and donating an enormous amount of themselves, their time. A lot of us are putting forth funding, time away from family, all kinds of different things. So it's a question of, is everybody willing to commit that your evenings are the only time we're doing everything? Because that's a lot of family time. Kids are in school, spouses are at work, the time you get to be with your family is at night. There is a reason why most governments function during the day. And so it's something to consider. At some point, are there boundaries of how much we're willing to put all of our lives on hold?
I will speak up. I think it bears realizing meetings are different, work sessions are different from regular council meetings. And work sessions are to get into the nitty gritty, like I'm not sure how Kanban works or the history of Kanban is a particular public import. That's a good illustration of the work sessions are for getting work done, especially in this startup mode. That being said, occasionally there is a matter of critical importance that's being discussed at a work session, like last week. So we had 2 work sessions on Monday. One in the day and one in the evening where people could come. So I think we should be flexible if there's an urgent matter. But, you know, even today, for example, if this were an evening session, well, there's another evening thing that we have to go to. Two or three of us want to go to the park. There's so much that we could be gone every night. And while I don't have little kids at home, I do have a husband and, you know, we all have family members. Every night out, multiple nights out of a week is a really difficult thing for me to manage and be respectful of my family situation. So I'd say be flexible.
Yeah, and I like that. What about if we had one work session a month in the evening? And I don't know if timing would work out for that, but I think we need to do things a little differently. I think that's why we're here, and I think people want to be involved. And I will advocate for doing it in the evening, even though I'm not, that's not my first choice for me personally. But I think for our community and where we're at and building this and getting involvement and engagement, this is what we need to do. That would be my recommendation.
So I'm just wondering, how many people came to the second evening work session?
About 20.
Okay,
And
so-
I can't count on Zoom, but there was about 20 in the audience.
Okay, and then also, are we thinking because people could comment on it, that we would have these, or because they can watch them on YouTube? Right?
Right.
At their convenience.
Right, but they're saying, I wanna be involved and I can't, it's an obstacle, so this is one, that's an option for them, is to watch it in the evening.
So are you then saying you would like to change what is the typical standard behavior, which is comments are not taken in work session? So are you saying you would want public comment and participation of audience members in every work session?
I liked how you ran those meetings before, you did sometimes if it was a particularly sensitive or difficult something situation.
Look,
You did
and
let
it's
people speak.
possible. It's a lot easier when there's three in the
I know.
than when there's
Then there's-
30, because we have a cutoff time of when the meetings end.
Right.
It's not
No,
always.
I understand that. I just think if we're not making that effort to be out there more than just the night meetings and to get people to hear about what we're grappling with, not our mechanics and
That's
not
what work sessions are, they're mechanics,
processes right now, but we're gonna get into a lot of land use stuff too.
but it's all mechanics.
And it's,
Yeah.
it's just, I personally think to do things a little differently than the county is a good thing, and I think being visible is a good thing. So that's personally my thing.
I'm sympathetic to citizens that want to be involved. There haven't been a lot of people show up yet. Hopefully there will be a lot of people. I'm equally, if not more sensitive to our time and my family's time. We also have to have a room in which we can operate. We don't know if this is available on Monday nights or whatever, because the other city uses this. I would propose that we continue as is for a while. I've heard not a single negative, no comment in District 5 like you've heard in District 2 about availability during the day. Nobody's come to me and said, hey, you guys are screwing up, we need to be available during the day. I haven't heard that. So I'm of the opinion we should continue as is and recognize that some people won't be able to be here. I'm having a town hall in 2 nights. I'm making myself available to answer anybody who shows up with questions for that very reason. In the evening at 6 o'clock so people can be there. So consider that too.
So, and I just want to add, because part of my responsibilities, my bucket of portfolio are external relations. I currently now sit on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 subcommittees at the state and county level. They all happen at night. So I have.
Why is that?
Because everybody works during the day. And so
But
my
also
nights and away from family are actually quite full already. It's not saying that I can't make myself available, but it's already part of my job that I'm going to the Parks meeting tonight. Tomorrow night I have the Fire District Board meeting, and then after that I have, so on and so, I'm on seven.
Yeah.
Seven.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate your effort. I'm just saying, things happen at night because people can be there, like the
Right.
Parks Board,
But
like with different
Yeah,
things.
and I want,
So we just have to balance that, and I think
Yeah.
being flexible is the best, to try to think not just during the day all the
and I think we're not doing public meetings during the day, which other
Right.
places do. I think we're trying pretty darn hard. We're doing
hearings.
town halls, we're doing
Help me with the language, Janet. Public
public
hearings
meetings.
or their meetings.
Well, you can't have a public hearing without a public meeting.
Okay, so public.
And all of our public meetings are at night.
Mhm.
And we did that, which is not how every other municipality works. And we did that so that we could make ourselves as available to the public as possible. We also have a planning commission that's about to get up and running, and their meetings are at night. So we're sharing a space where they have a planning commission and they have a city council. We have to work within the bounds of where we have a location. And believe it or not, I think evenings are gonna be pretty full pretty quickly. I know my monthly evenings are already quite full. Again, I'm open to whatever discussion. We do have a mayor pro tem. But I think at some point there needs to be some understanding, especially when we have people arguing that no one should be paid. Please think about what you're asking of people. Because we have families and spouses and hopefully some hobbies and whatnot. And there needs to be some time where to do it. I know a lot of us are working 7 days a week and evenings as well, so.
I have not heard the no pay thing yet. I haven't.
Oh, there's chatter, people are saying all kinds of
Really?
things.
I haven't heard that yet.
Can I just make a quick comment that's kind of a lone representative of the general public here? I'm probably twice any of your age, and I've seen politics come and go for many years, and the biggest problem with politics is transparency. And you have done a great job from the very beginning. As we talked a long time ago, but you've done a great job convincing people that we're going to have transparency, and we're buying it. And I can, but I'm with Peggy. We all have limitations on time, and but a meeting, evening meeting occasionally would help your transparency issue.
Yep, and I think that's why we have all of our meetings in the evening. Yeah.
But semantics matters.
Yeah, that's why.
What the conversation is about changing our work sessions, what we're in right now to a later time. So I think there's no perfect solution. There's none. And our definitive, transparent public meeting is Tuesday nights. Very deliberately, we're doing them then, because that's when the actual vote's out, except this special one this afternoon. Let's see how it goes. You've received comments. I haven't received any comments from anybody in my district. I'm opening myself up on Wednesday night. If they come in and say, look, stop these work sessions, then I'll bring it to you guys, but that's where I am right now.
Yeah, and part of that transparency is, if everybody's gonna be doing town halls, people will have opportunities to come in the evenings to talk to members of council, again, hopefully, and we're just getting up and running. And maybe this is only the crest of the wave and there's gonna be a ton more that say, nope, 100%, that's what we wanna have happen. But I would hope that that we are fulfilling the promise of transparency by having everything electronically accessible as well as in person. Any meeting where any decisions are being made will all be at night. We're hoping to have regular town halls. That's for you all to work through on your own, but so that you are accessible and communicating with your constituents as often as possible. We have public notices going out and newsletters to update people and all these other things. We're just at the beginning of all this. We need to get up and running and streamline and get our feet wet, and then we can fix, problems as we find out that they are in fact problems. But as this is our first work session, I would be, yeah.
So I invite you to be flexible, keep an open mind about it, and I'm saying if we could do it once a month, a work session, to be visible, to be here. That I just want you to keep that in mind, because it's not the first one I got today, I got a number of them, so. I'm just reporting back, and I would be willing to do that.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if anybody else has heard from other people?
I have not.
I have been. Any other comments or anything? Yes,
I
sir.
have three things for my peers. Wednesday, the 14th, the water meeting is with Hugh Hurlow and Lucy Jordan. Lucy is the author of the 2019 the hydrology report. The planning commission is invited as well. So they're gonna have a presentation. They're gonna walk us through the report, and it's our opportunity to really understand from those who wrote the report, the wet water situation. Where's the water and how much? Yeah.
I think I saw two different locations.
It's gonna be here.
It's here, that's the last one I just saw,
It's gonna be
okay,
Oh, yeah.
so it's not at the library.
Well, it's supposed to be at the library.
Okay.
Whether or not we confused it, I don't know. It's supposed to be.
The latest, citywide email blast I saw was here, that it's happening here.
Yes, the intent, right? I'm looking at,
Yes.
yes,
1 p.m., right?
1 p.m.
Yeah.
So come with questions. Hugh told me he'll have about 10 hard copies, so we'll be able to get them. And the public notice will go out, so hopefully Miranda and others from the water companies will come here as well. The county's gonna put a sign on 2900 north east, or 2900 west, I think it is, just before the divide, the last road
Yeah.
before the divide, an open close sign, so it'll go up sometime in the next couple of weeks. Thank you for bringing that to
I
me.
have had a lot of people ask about that.
Yeah, so I met with Joe Hadley yesterday, and they're gonna put a sign up. I can't tell you when, but that's their intent.
Good.
Your engineers, Nate, he's working his tiny off already, so we got a good one. He's already involved in some of the development stuff and SWIP stuff and all that, so we'll get him here to one of our work sessions at some point and have him tell us how what he's doing, but we hired a good one in our.
And I noticed your email about replacing a bridge.
Yeah, may I real
Yeah,
quick? So.
yes, but,
Right over here by the fire station is 7900 east. That runs north-south. The bridge on that is falling apart. In fact, it's fallen apart. And they've got literally baling wire duct tape holding it together. So UDOT pays for it. It's a UDOT project. But it turns out the county engineer would have approved it if it had been ready to go during the county, since it's now the city engineer approves it. And so Nate and I looked at the project Friday, he gave me all the information, we decided to approve it, so I approved it. The county or the state through YODA manages the project, we don't.
So is that gonna be our protocol or our process? I mean, is there for like bridges, and is there a report?
he's in charge of roads and engineering, and so he's.
What's the question?
The approval process and what surfaces. I know there was a road study. Are we looking at priorities in the valley? Are we in the city?
So 3 different questions. So.
And bundle them all together with why.
So the one to many list that's engineering has on there the state of our infrastructure. So Nate and his team will be getting with the county and getting, here's the state of all the bridges, all the roads, all the storm drains. And then we will have a state of our infrastructure. One,
We will.
yes, we will. 2, we will inherit from the county, or we have inherited from the county, the current 2026 repair the roads plan. We will decide what it will be later this spring when we turn from snow, if it ever snows again, to fixing asphalt. But Nate and his team will prepare their recommendations for us and bring it to us on what roads need to be repaired in what way for 2026.
I'm asking process questions, just because I want to know.
And-
So can I stop you there? When he presents, is that an approval he's bringing, or is he bringing information?
We decide. I'm gonna say, in the case of things like the plan, yes, he'll bring us the engineering recommendation for what roads for our approval.
But what Peggy's asking, and I know she's asking, because I was, when you were explaining the bridge over here, you explained it as though, yeah, I went with the engineer, he said it was bad, so I approved it.
Right.
So Peggy's
Yeah,
wondering, how was
So
I'm talking process.
I was getting back to that question. We were given one day. The UDOT said, I have to decide today because whatever the UDOT process was, there had to be a decision today. And what the decision was, which of the bids to approve. So they weren't asking us whether or not there was gonna be a bridge fixed. It was which contractor are we going to use? And they had done all the due diligence to rack and stack the contractors, given Nate and I a set of information and said, which of these do you approve to go do? It is now your decision to go do. We had one day to do it. So I made the decision for us because there was no time to go do. And the decision was obvious in this case. It was the low bid had met all of the criteria. In the future, we need to decide how things are decided in here. Whether or not that's delegated to me or we bring it to council for that stuff. But in this case, we were literally given one day to make a decision because of the UDOT's bureaucracy, and we made a decision.
What's that?
Can we close the
Adjourn.
meeting so we have time to reset for the public?
Yes, we do. We got a small bio break and then we have a public meeting happening right after this. So,
I move to adjourn.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
Bye.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.